Hi everyone, this is Michelle Pethley from Shelley's Wreaths and More, and today I'm going to assemble the Trendy Tree subscription box for March. It's the Watercolor Bunny Kit. This kit comes with everything you see in front of me. The first thing is the sign with the mother bunny and the baby bunny. It's a beautiful sign, very delicate, and the green is kind of a blue-green around the leaves. I'm not sure if you can see that clearly enough from my recording. You can see that I've already put my pipe cleaners through the holes, and I'll explain that a little bit later. Now, along with the wreath frame here, it comes with 2 rolls of mesh. It's fabric mesh. And I've already cut up one roll, and I saved the other roll so that I could cut it on the screen and show you how to do that. But we're going to use a poof method, a cruffle method, and a curl method. It also comes with these 3 ribbons. This is a cream colored Dupioni. It's a very soft, delicate ribbon. I loved working with it. It comes with this cream and beige check, and the last one is the pink and with white polka dots. Both the check and the pink are 1.5 inch ribbons. The other is a 2.5 inch ribbon. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to just cut the price tag off. And we're going to start with our poofs. We'll open up this mesh and put it on the wreath for you. The first thing I always do when I start with the poof method, is I'm going to gather up the edge of the mesh, just pleat it together. All right, and I like to fasten it to the wreath frame itself. So I just find a spot. There are 3 rails on this wreath frame. I always zip tie the starting point of my mesh to the middle ring. That's what I'm doing here. Now the reason I'm doing a voiceover for this first part is I started assembling this wreath and I realized that my voice was not recording. So I apologize for this mess. But after a little while, I will get back to talking as I prepare the wreath. It's just the first couple of minutes here. But you can see now that I've just zip tied that starting point to the middle rail. It just gives it added security. Now with any type of measuring device, you could use a ruler. I'm using this measuring tool opened up to 10 inches. And I just measure 10 inches from one tie to another. So I just put the measuring tool, at the base of that tie, just like that, and then grab my mesh at the 10-inch point, okay, which is just the other end of that measuring device. Now you can use a piece of cardboard, measure to 10 inches. You could also just use your mat. Okay, once I twist that mesh in that tie, I just open up the little poof and just move on. Now I'm going to do this for all 8 of the ties that are on the top ring. Okay, just takes a little time, but just take your time, open up each one afterwards. And the reason that I do put poofs on the top ring is that it helps keep the mesh, gives a little bit more strength to the mesh, so that when I put in the sign later at the end, the sign doesn't sink in to the mesh. It kind of stays on top of it. This poof method just gives you a little bit more, I don't know, sturdiness to the top layer. Just keeps your things from, kind of sinking in. At least that's what I found. Not every wreath that I do, I don't use this method all the time, but a lot of the time this is the best way for, because I add a lot of things at the end. So we're almost finishing up here with the poofs. And then after the poofs, we're going to put cruffles on the bottom and the top. And lastly, I'm going to use a curl, one little curl, to keep my ribbon tails in place. And I've calculated this out. We had 2 rolls of mesh, and the mesh, each roll has 360 inches on it. It's 10 yards. So what I did is I calculated that I would have enough mesh if I put 10-inch poofs on the top, and then I cut 18 10-inch curls, and the rest of the mesh I just divided into 18 pieces for cruffles. So that came to about 23 inches for the cruffles. Now here you can see that I've cut off my mesh, and all I'm going to do is just take one more zip tie and tie this little nub end to the middle wire ring of the work frame with a zip tie again, just as I did in the beginning. But this just keeps that mesh from moving on me. So once we get that done, we'll be able to move on to our cruffles. Now in the beginning, I cut that one roll of mesh up, so I only have a few more cruffles and, 23-inch pieces plus the 10-inch curl pieces to cut. I did a lot of this cutting ahead of time just to save us some time. So now I'm just going to straighten up the edge of this mesh with my rotary cutter. You can see it's just a little jaggedy edge from where I cut off the poof. And we're going to just straighten it up real quick. All right. And now I'm just going to continue cutting. I'm going to cut my 10-inch curl pieces. I stretch the mesh beyond the 30 inches, and then I start at the 30-inch mark and cut at the 20-inch mark, and last at the 10-inch mark. And that gives me 3 pieces of 10-inch mesh. I'm going to do that just a few more times. And just, again, stretch it to the 30 inches. And then I just cut 3 There we go. All right. Well, I know I have 9 cuts there. We need 18. There's 12, just a few more. And then we will be able to start assembling our wreath. I think this is probably my last cut. I know that I can tell by the mesh, how tightly wound the mesh is, that we are down to the very last couple of cuts. And there we go. You can see we have very little left on the 2 rolls. I like using this method because we end up using all of the mesh. There's not enough on either of these rolls to keep, so I'll be able to dispose of this without worry. I haven't wasted too much. So now it's time to start putting the mesh on the wreath. I'll just move these out of the way so that you can see the process a little bit better. Up in the very top of the screen, I don't know if you can see it, it's a little pink snail. That was an additional little surprise that Trendy Tree put in the box. It's really cute. I won't be using it in this wreath, but I definitely know what wreath I'm going to use it in. I have a project with a pink bunny, and it's going to look just perfect in that project. Okay, so let's go back to our wreath frame. We're going to start putting the cruffles on the bottom 10 ties first. So a cruffle is just a curl, then a scrunch, and a curl. So here you can see we're curling up the end of the wreath, just turning it on itself a couple of times. I'm going to use a clip to hold that, and then I'm going to turn it around, do the same process on this end, curl it up just a couple of times, and then scrunch right up the middle. You can see scrunching is just basically pleating the mesh in the middle of the mesh, right up the middle, and I'm just using my fingers to walk up the mesh and push it against my thumb that trails. All right, and you end up with a little bow tie. All right, now I like to turn mine over and put it in the wreath with the actual curls pointing down. Now, after you do a cruffle method like this, you'll end up with 2 curls and then a ruffle in between. So that's how they get the name cruffle. Now just push it down onto the wreath frame and twist the ties. All right? I'm just opening up pulling them away from the wreath frame. Make it a little bit easier to put those cruffles in. So I know that now the reason we turn the cut edges inside of them in the beginning here, we're basically turning the cut edge in on top of itself. This helps minimize the amount of fraying that goes on, because fraying really, when your mesh frays, it's from the cut edges. So if you turn the cut edges in, that minimizes the fraying. Now you can see I'm just walking my hands right up the middle. I'm going to turn it over and just put it in the very next tie. Okay, and I just kind of butt them up to each other. There we go. Now, if you don't have a clip, you can do this method freehand by, just set this up for you so you can see, I just roll that first edge in as we've done, and now I just ruffle it right up the middle till I get close to the other end, and I stop at this end and just turn the far end down on top of itself a couple of times, and you can see it forms the curl perfectly by itself. Then I just walk the remaining part, and you get the same bow tie cruffle from this. Just push it down onto there, and away we go. All mesh frays, there's nothing that you can do about the fraying. All you can do is minimize it by using techniques like the cruffle or the curl, where you're taking and hiding the edges and protecting them from additional or excessive tugging, which would cause the fraying. So here again, we're just walking up the middle of the mesh, and then when we get towards the other end, you're just going to, I'm just demonstrating how I'm pulling the mesh when I'm walking it up. But you can see that when you get to this end, just tightly turn that in, and that process just forms that curl perfectly for you. Just put that in. And you can see with all the curls and the ruffles that we're filling in quite a bit. And what you're trying to do, of course, with the mesh is give enough of a depth so that the wire frame of the wreath frame doesn't show through your mesh. So that's why this method, the cruffle method, kind of creates many, many layers between the ruffle and the curls on the ends of them, and it helps hide or just basically hide the wreath frame from view. It gives your wreath a very puffy look too. Now, like I said, there's 10 on the bottom, 10 ties on the bottom of a work frame, and then there's 8 on the top. So each one of these cruffles have been cut at about 23 inches. And the reason, as I said before, was because I needed to get 10-inch poofs on the top and then 10-inch curls that we're going to apply when we put our ribbons in. Some meshes are very see-through. This mesh, a fabric mesh, is a soft mesh. That's what we're working with here. And it is a little bit see-through. So when I add the curls, when I put in the ribbon tails, it'll help give some depth and again hide. Our ultimate goal is to keep that wreath frame from showing through the mesh. When I put one cruffle on top of the other, I just kind of pull the curls around to the top and the bottom. You'll see me kind of tug at that. And that's just to spread out the the two curls on the end, pulling them together, and then creating pretty much like a circle, complete circle. Because right now, as you can see, it's that bow tie shape, and when you put those two, when you push it in and tie it around, you just are pulling the curls up to kind of complete a circle. See it? And there you go. Just pull those curls up, top and bottom, to close off any gaps. Okay. This becomes a very monotonous procedure, but it's definitely needed so that your wreath is big and fluffy. I just am trying to show you that when you curl that last side, that far side in on top of itself in the middle, those curls form automatically for you. You'd have nothing to worry about if you want to use this freehand method. But either way, you can use a clip if you have one, or freehand it. I believe this is our last one on the bottom. Just pleat it right up the middle, walk your fingers in there, and then turn it on itself. And there you go. Now you can put the curl side up or curl side down. Either way works out just fine. Just be consistent. Choose the way you want to do it and just be consistent. There's no right or wrong way, but it's always better just to put each curl in or each cruffle in the same way. Okay, now for the top, I'm going to, of course, use the same thing. I'm cruffling it up. Just turn it in on itself. And what I like to do is I like to open up the twist ties on the top. Now we know that the twist tie is holding in that 10-inch poof, but don't worry, the mesh has a memory. It's not going to spring out at you. See, it, even though that tie is open, the mesh is staying down there. Gives you time to put that cruffle in and adjust it. I pull up the poof that's in between each of those, and there you go. I'm just adjusting the cruffle below it. We just are going to do that for each of the remaining 7. But like I said, I open up my ties when I'm adding something. I open them up when I add the ribbon tails. I open the top ties up when I'm putting the cruffle in over the poof. And you don't have to worry. This mesh is, it has that memory, so you don't have to worry about it coming out. It hardly even moves when you open up that tie. But this is something I do. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. You can simply add the mesh right to that already twisted tie. But see, I open it up and just push that down. And really, when you push that cruffle into that tie, make sure that you push it as hard as firmly as you can down to that wire rim, because that'll make your poofs or your cruffle come upward instead of laying flat. That's what I'm trying to show you here. Yeah. I'm not doing any kind of whale sign or anything. What I was trying to show you is that the deeper that you can push that cruffle into that tie and then tie it off, the more that cruffle the ends of the cruffle come forward and give you the depth and dimension that you need when you're putting this on your wreath. I know we're almost done with these, putting in the cruffles. And see the consistency. I just always turn my cruffle upside down, but there's no right or wrong. Just be consistent. That's all you need to do. Fabric mesh is one of the easiest meshes to use. It's very soft. It holds its shape, but it doesn't. Some of the value meshes are very rough on your hands, as well as they're not difficult. It's just such a different feeling when you use them. So if you had the choice, try to find mesh that's a fabric mesh. Another mesh that's out there now is called Breeze Mesh. That's a brand new mesh this year that is really, it lives by its name. It's a breeze to use. It's very soft, similar to this fabric mesh, and it's just very easy to use. And both of these meshes, hold up very nicely. But I think fabric mesh, because of the way it's made, when you cut it with a rotary cutter, it doesn't, it does fray, don't get me wrong, it will fray, but it doesn't fray as easily, and it's just the way that the process, they make the mesh. You can see that I've cut all of my mesh with a rotary cutter, and we haven't had any frays. So that just speaks to the quality of this fabric mesh. Okay, and I think this is our last one. I'm going to just show you one more time just how to walk your fingers right up the middle of that mesh, and then just pinch it together and in you go. Thank you so much for bearing with me as I've done this voiceover. I would much rather just not have to do that, but it was definitely operator error when I set up my first part of this video. Okay, now it's time to put in the ribbon tails. And this kit came with the 3 ribbons, which is perfect, but I like to add a few more ribbons to my bow as well as my ribbon tails. And I have quite a stash from all of my wreath making, so I just go into my stash and find some ribbons that will match the sign or the attachment that I'm using. In this case, though, it is the sign. And I went and I found some ribbon that had kind of the bluish green that matches the leaf in the ribbon. In the sign, the bunny sign. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just getting my 10-inch curls ready, because what we're going to do is we're going to add the ribbon and then put a curl on top of it to help out. Now see, I've already cut all of my ribbon ahead of time. I have 2 packets, okay, and each packet has a 2.5 inch ribbon, a 1.5 inch ribbon, and a 7/8 inch ribbon. So there's 3 in each packet, and you can see here that I've tried to match or bring out a ribbon that has the same color to bring out that blue-green that's in the leaves. So I've cut all my ribbons at 13 inches, and I've dovetailed the end of each ribbon. The reason I did this without showing you is we're adding an additional step with the curl, adding the curl, and I didn't want to take up too much more of your time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one ribbon from each of this for each packet, and I'm going to, when I add it to the tie, the twist ties of the wreath, I'm going to add the curl on top of that. And what that curl does is it's two things in particular. The first thing it does is by adding a curl on top of the ribbons in the tie, the pressure of the curl keeps those ribbons in the place that you put them, okay? And this cream Dupioni ribbon is so soft and smooth that I needed something to kind of hold it in place. So I will take the 10-inch curl and put it on top of it. So you'll see here, I've taken the first grouping of ribbons, I've layered it 2.5 on the bottom, the 1.5 in the middle, and then the 7/8 on top. I folded it in half to get the middle, and then I've scrunched right up the middle. Then what I like to do is pop the divots, and those are the pieces very close to that scrunched area. All right, then I put this in. All right, I just twist it a few times, and before I spread it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a curl. Okay, and here I just take the mesh, all right, curl it on top of itself, kind of like a taquito, maybe about 1.5 inches. Okay, you can see it. It's about 1.5 inches wide. And then I take this one is staying put because it's the end of the roll. But then I take with the seam or the cut side, see the cut side is right there. I'm going to put that down on the board or on my table and just scrunch right in the middle. Okay, now I'm going to open up that tie, the twist tie that's holding that ribbon. And I'm going to make sure that that cut side goes down. All right, now I'm opening up the tie. I'm pushing that down on top of the ribbon. Okay, and what that does is it's going to hold that ribbon in place for us, as well as give us an additional curl. All right, and that curl just adds dimension to your wreath. But the biggest thing that it does is I find that this curl method helps keep, if you have soft ribbons, and that Dupioni is very soft, it keeps it in place. Now I just kind of spread each side of the ribbon tails, and I like to do it in the same pattern. So I will spread it, in this case, the pink, then the green, and then the the green, the pink, then the cream, and then I'll do the same on the other side so that when you're done spreading them, it'll be a pattern of green, pink, cream, from right to left, green, pink. There you go. Oops. You can see it there. But see that curl that I've added on top of that ribbon just adds adds enough pressure to keep that ribbon in place. So now we're going to just do the same thing with the other packet of ribbons. We're going to set it up so that it's the green and white polka dot, which is the 2.5-inch ribbon. That's going to go on the bottom of our packet. Then the cream and beige check. And finally this pink plaid. And just find the middle of that. I just crease it there so that I have a point of reference so that I can crease it right up the middle. All right, pinch out, push out those divots, and then open up the tie, push it down in there, and grab one more curl. And just curl it up about an inch, inch and a half. Make sure the seam side or the cut side is down. Scrunch it in the middle. And then just add it right on top of those ribbons. And you can twist up those ties several times because we're done adding anything into the ties. And then I just will open up the ribbons the same way. I'll do the pink first in this case, then the cream and the green. And see, they don't move around after you've opened them up because you've given them a little bit more pressure with that. And when I say move around, they're not going to move side to side, but what happens is a lot of times is they curl up on, if they're soft, they'll curl up on themselves. So this kind of helps keep them spread out the way you want it. And you can see that the curls kind of point upward now, and that adds an additional dimension to your wreath. Okay, so now we're going to just go back to the first. You kind of have to decide which one you want to be on top, but in any case, now what I'm going to do here is I have this, it's called a Bodabra, but you can use, if you have a bow maker, anything that has, you know, an area that you can just put this. What I'm doing is just making the curls ahead of time. I'm just going to load up a couple of them. It makes the process go a little faster. That way when I grab my ribbons and I get them all pinched up in the middle, I'll just grab a curl and put the ribbon and the curl into the tie at the same time, instead of how I did it in the first two here, which was I put the ribbons in, twisted the tie, grabbed the curl, opened the tie, and then put the curl on top of the ribbons. So this way, if you have the curls pre-made like this, you can just grab them with your ribbon and put it all in at once. It'll save you some time. But the advantage of this method really outshines itself when you see the way that the curls hold that ribbon in place. So here again, we're just finding the middle. I crease it to give me a point of reference. And then once I get the ribbon, the divots pushed out there, I'm going to open the tie. All right, then I'm going to grab the curl and put it in at the same time. Now I'm going to just twist it tight and be done with those. Okay, so the curl's in place, the ribbons are in place, and now you just have to spread your ribbons. And here again, just be consistent with the method, the order that you spread them. And I also like to spread my ribbons to the outside, not to the inside, so that my ribbons kind of form a half moon or a half circle on the bottom, pointing outward towards the bottom of the wreath. I've already completed putting in the ribbon tails along the bottom. All right, and I'm using 3 ribbons in each tie. And let's continue on the top rail. It's the exact same procedure as on the bottom, but now you'll be able to see what we're doing with the curl. Now the reason I'm using this curl, as I had explained before, but we didn't hear it, was that this Dupioni ribbon is very soft. It's a beautiful, beautiful ribbon. But sometimes when you make a ribbon, ribbon tail out of it, it doesn't do what you want it to do. You might find it curling and things like that. So what I've started to do in cases like that, if I have ribbon that has a mind of its own, it's a teenage ribbon, it has a mind of its own, I sometimes put this extra curl in. It's a little bit extra step, but it does 2 things. It will hold down the ribbon in the position that you want it to be. It gives your wreath additional dimension. This curl, you can see on the bottom here, gives it another curl. It makes it fuller. It gives it more dimension. So that is the purpose of that curl. And let's get started with the ribbon tails on the top. All right. So I'm going to take my set of ribbon tails here. And I should tell you this. My ribbon is all cut at 13 inches. All right. It's all dovetailed. And when I make the bow, I will show you how to dovetail. And then in addition to being 13 inches and dovetailed, I can't really think of the third thing I wanted to tell you about that, but let's just start off. I'm sure it'll come to me. All right, now I'm gonna just take and layer my ribbons. All right, 2.5, 1.5, and then 1 inch. I fold it in the middle just to give me a middle point. All right, and then I scrunch it right up that middle part. Now I take and I push out the dimples, push them forward, okay, push them. The dimple is this little area right next to the pinch where I'm holding it. Now I'm gonna open up my tie. All right, I'm gonna push the ribbons down to the bottom of that tie. I'm gonna grab one of the curls that I've made out of my 10-inch piece of mesh, and I'm gonna push that right on top of the ribbons and then close the tie, twist it really, really well. We're done putting stuff in. You can see that the curl adds a little bit more dimension. Now let's spread our tails. You can spread them however you want. I'm just gonna stay with the same pattern that I've done on the bottom, which is pink, cream, then the green, and then I'll start over on this side with the pink, cream, and green. Okay, so they spread out. And on the top rail, just as I did on the bottom, I like to just, again, this is my preference, I like to have them kind of from the midpoint of the tie coming outward. Because of course we're gonna put the sign here, and I didn't really want to waste all the ribbon underneath the sign. So by pulling it out towards the outside perimeter of the wreath, you're getting more color and you're not losing as much underneath the sign. Some of it will go under the sign. It's just natural how it will go. Okay, so let's move on to our next packet of ribbon tails. And that is the Dupioni cream, polka dot, and this light green. All right, and I do remember what I wanted to tell you about the ribbon tails. Aside from them being 13 inches long, I also only cut, we have 8 ties on the top, but I only cut ribbons for 6 of the ties. And the reason is that I put a rather large bow on the top rail, of course, and it takes over pretty much the space of those 2 ties. So my thought is, why put ribbon underneath when you're really not going to see it? And sometimes it actually interferes with my bow. So I avoid the extra cost of those 2 sets of ribbons and the hassle of having the tails kind of twisted underneath the bow. I avoid all of that by just doing 6 ties up here. And you'll see when I'm all done putting the ties up here, I'll have what I call a bow zone, and then we'll know exactly where the bow needs to go. Now, I've taken this packet, folded it in the middle. I found the crease that goes up the middle. I'm just going to crease it, pop the dimples, put it in my next tie. Now I open up my ties. Again, you don't have to. I'm going to take a curl that I made out of this 10-inch mesh that we cut. I'm going to pinch it in the middle, push it down into that tie, and then twist away because we're done with that. All right, now let's spread these. And I do this the same way with the thinner ribbon on the top and the 2.5 out, and you can see it just flares out beautifully, and it helps to hold it down into this flare because the pressure of this curl that's now sitting between that and the ribbon and the tie. All right, I hope that makes sense. Again, you don't need to do that. It's just something that I like to do when I have ribbons that are just a little bit softer and tend to curl. All right, so let's just continue doing this. We just have a few more to do. I'm going to create my packet of the 3 ribbons, fold it in half, then open it up, scrunch it up that little fold that we just created, push out the dimples. Okay, and you know, when I say push out the dimples, what I'm trying to do is get the ribbons to curl downwards. Let's grab up our curl that I've made and simply push it down, tie it up nice and tight, and there we go. Now let's spread them. Okay, and you know, this is what I meant by pushing out that divot, your ribbon kind of arcs downward. If you don't want, if you want your ribbons to come, you know, to go up, then don't worry about that divot. I'm sure that you know, there are designers that like their ribbons to pop up. I just kind of like them to lay down to give me that look. Okay, let's curl up those, and there we go. All right, the next packet is the Dupioni with polka dot and green. I'm just folding it in half to get the crease. All right, let's pinch it in the middle, open up my tie, and just push it down with my finger and add the curl on top. And there you have it. Now you can close it up for good and then spread your tails. You can see the softness of this beautiful ribbon just kind of just lays where it wants to go. All right, so you can see, spread that out like wings. All right, let's just keep going. We just have a few more. Then I can make the bow for you and show you the bow zone. Now, as I said before in the beginning, however, we didn't hear it, I added ribbons to those that came in the kit. But the kit is actually perfectly blended together. You don't need to add a single thing to your wreath kit, and it comes out beautiful. The Trendy Tree is very, very good at curating the things that come in your kit, the colors. The kits are wonderful if you don't want to have to try to pull together items for the kit, you know, to put together a wreath. The kit will come and everything in there, you use it and it will make absolutely a beautiful, beautiful wreath without having to add another thing to it. I just choose to add a little bit to try to give you some inspiration as well as make my wreath for my Etsy shop. You know, I kind of have a certain way of doing things, and I like to just add a little bit to the wreath kit to give it some flair. Okay, now I'm on my last ribbon bundle for the tails, and then we can move on to making the bow. Okay, just gonna pinch it off the dimples and then put it in. It's my last curl. Now I pre-made these curls, or pre-rolled them I should say, put them in my bow dabber here, just something to hold them in the curl shape. And the reason is that way I can just add everything at one time, the ribbon tails as well as the curl. Now if you don't have a bow dabber or have something that holds it, you can always simply put your ribbons in first and then just reopen that tie again and put the curl on top of it and then close it. And believe me, nothing is going to, this mesh has a memory and it's not going to spring out of there. You know, if you open up the tie, it's not going to just jump out, and it'll stay where you put it for a little bit, so you don't have to worry. But there we have it. Okay, all of our ties are on there. Our ribbon tails are tied in. And you can see this area, okay, is going to be my bow zone, okay, because I make a rather large bow, and that way I'm not wasting these tails underneath the bow. All right, so real quick, to make my bow, I'm going to bring in a couple of different ribbons, and I can show you quickly how this, see how the sign and the colors of the ribbons by adding that green kind of help it pop. Alrighty, now I'll put the bow here, I think. The other thing you can do is I can put the bow zone kind of at 10 o'clock. Let's see, if the bow zone's at 10 o'clock and we put the sign down here and then put the bow up there, maybe that's how I'll do it. In fact, that's what I am going to do. I'm going to make the bow, put it up here, and then I'm going to, if the bow covers up any part of my sign, which you do want the bow to come over your sign a little, to kind of incorporate it, to pull everything together. If you just had a bow here and the sign here, there's it's like disjointed. So when I make a wreath, I always try to get the bow to somehow come across the sign just a little, so that it's all pulled together. Now I'm gonna, before I make the bow, I'm gonna put the sign in, because I like where I have it right now. And what I've done to prepare my sign is I have a jewelry punch is actually the correct term for this tool. It's just a tiny little hole puncher. I don't know if you can see it. All right. Can you see the head on it? It has a very small little punch right there. That's the punch. You just punch the sign in those spots. I used white pipe cleaner to feed it through, because hopefully the white will blend in. You won't see this pipe cleaner as much. And then I put it in 4 places to secure the sign. Let's just push down our ties a little bit so they're not poking up on the sign. All right. Now I'm just going to feed this pipe cleaner down through. And the important thing about when you secure anything in a wreath, you want to make sure that you get the pipe cleaner around one of the rim of the wreath frame itself. You don't want it just to be tied through mesh, because that is a very unstable attachment. You know, the mesh moves, it gives and stuff. The wreath frame itself is not going to move anywhere. And by securing your ties around one of the rails, it will give, you know, some security to your whole design. After I get this attached, I will show you what I mean by around the rail. I'm just feeding it through. And these pipe cleaners are a little weak. Look at that. I have weak ribbon and weak pipe cleaners today. But actually it's soft ribbon and weak pipe cleaner. Okay, so here I have one. Just going to twist it around the back. All right, and you want to be careful not to pull your sign too tight on it, because you don't want it to, you want it to kind of sit above the mesh. Okay, and that one may be a little bit tight. I might have to let it out a little bit. I'll see when I get the other ones on. Okay, so let's see, I'm just gonna fix all of this as soon as we get it on. After I do one, I go and attach the one directly across it. So let's go and turn this around and just attach this one. And as with the first one, I'm trying to catch when I put it through the, I do put it through the mesh, but I'm trying to catch the wreath frame rail that's on the back and straddle it with the pipe cleaner. That way, see, you can see how it just pulls it a little tighter. Okay. All right, we got two done. Alrighty, let's do the other two now. Now it doesn't really matter what order you go in this one, this next one, because but just by doing the two across from each other first, just makes it a better, holds it better for you. It doesn't slide around so much on your within your design. Sometimes if you have a little trouble, let's see if I can find my, okay. I don't have my needle handy, but I do have a kind of like a crochet needle. It's got a very, very long needle. It's a very long needle and a very big eye on it. And if you feed your pipe cleaner through the eye and then the needle through the mesh, it's perfect. It just slices through it perfectly. And you can attach things a bit quicker than I'm doing right now. Okay, got that done though. Just have to find that other one. Okay, there it is. Make sure you surround it. And I'll fix all of these tails in just a second. Get our last. This one's a little easier because generally you don't have to go through the mesh. I am going to add, because I'm a little further away from the edge, I'm just going to add an extension onto my pipe cleaner. Just one end of the pipe cleaners. Again, I'll flip this over and show you what I'm doing. Just adding one pipe cleaner to the end of the pipe cleaner that's going through my sign, because I'm further away from the rim than the other ones. Okay, and then just pull it and twist it. Okay, before I fix the ribbon tails, I'm going to just flip it over for you and show you what I've done here. Okay, So all I've done, you can see the white pipe cleaners. I've just straddled one of the wires or the rim of the wreath frame. Okay? See how each pipe cleaner is straddling the wreath frame. That adds a lot of stability. Now all I do is I just take these little ends and push them back into the mesh, just so nothing scratches anybody if they reach underneath to carry the wreath. Okay, and this was the one that I just added a longer or another pipe cleaner to one side of it. And what I'm going to do there is I'm just going to wrap it around a little bit. The reason I don't cut these is because I'm never quite sure until I'm totally done with my wreath if it's exactly where I need it to be, you know. So if you cut it and then you find out, well, I need to move it, it's a little bit harder. Okay, so now I'm just going to take a few seconds just to straighten out these ribbon tails. All right, especially the ones up here that we've kind of messed with. Okay, I'm pulling out, those are the curls, the ends of the curls that we put in there to hold these ribbons down. Okay, let's take a little time, spread them out. So that all the colors are showing, all the ribbons. You've gone to great lengths to get them in here. We gotta let them show. Just pulling up the ribbon curls. The curl that we put right on top of the ribbons. Again, to give it dimension to hold down as well as hold down the ribbon tails. Right here. See, also when you work with your ribbons, if you kind of curl it with your hand, just like curling ribbon, you know how you wrapped a package? Use your hand in the same motion and it'll curl your ribbon over. Okay, now I could be here all day doing this and we don't need to, you get the drift. When you're done with your your wreath, you're gonna just take the time and do that. Okay, so now you can see clearly now I have my bow zone right there. And I'm going to just build the bow with longer tails on this side, shorter on this side. And then it'll complement that sign really, really nicely. All right, now let's move that to the side. To make my bow, I use the bow maker. All right, now these are the ribbons that came with the kit. And I'm going to add a few just to give it a little bit of dimension. All right, this is one I'm adding. This is the one I'm adding. I think I'm going to start with this. I think it'll tie in beautifully with the pink as well as the neutral or natural color of the mesh. Okay, and let's just rearrange these a bit. Okay, so we have, with these ribbons, we have green is evenly dispersed, the beige is evenly dispersed, and then we have some complementary other ribbons. I think that's all I'm going to put in. I've pulled a lot of ribbons, but I was thinking of bringing in a darker color, but I think I'm going to just stick with all the soft pinks that we have going this way. This is quite a big, substantial ribbon, so it'll bring a little bit more impact. Now again, these three come with it. You can make a bow simply out of this and your wreath will look beautiful. I just like to add these as since I put them in the tails as well. Now, when I start out with my, before I start my bow, I usually have a 20-inch long pipe cleaner, but I don't have any today. So I'm just going to tie two together like this. Okay. Just because it's easier to get through the mesh. We just saw how hard it was to get through the mesh. And if the pipe cleaner is too small, it just makes the job more frustrating. Okay, so let's just move these to the side. Alrighty. Now I am going to add a few things to my wreath, so I'm going to turn on my glue pot. And hopefully it'll be all nice and melted by the time we are ready to add. All right. Get that started. Let's start with our 4-inch ribbon. And I just want to tell you, don't be afraid to try 4-inch ribbon. It really adds a lot to your bow. It adds a lot to the look of your wreath as well. Okay, now I'm going to start by putting my pipe cleaner in the middle of the two pegs. All right, build the bow on top of it. Then when I tie off the bow, I use a zip tie, but this pipe cleaner will already be on the bottom of the bow, just ready for us to just put it into the wreath. All right. So I'm going to start out with about a, let's see, this kind of determines if I'm going to turn this up or cut it in a dovetail. Oh, I kind of like that look. All right, a lot of the times with these designer ribbons, you can find they'll have a different back on it. You know, they'll be fused together or stitched together. And this gives it a nice little look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it probably a 12-inch tail. I'm going to put the ribbon down the middle of the pegs, and I'm going to twist. Okay. Reason you're twisting is because you want you're making a loop around, and you want the outside of the ribbon, or the color of the ribbon. Let's take this off so I can show you this. Okay. And I'm going to have about a 7.5-inch loop. You're twisting it again. All right, so that by twisting it, you're bringing the good side of the ribbon up around and back in. Now we're only doing 2 loops. So on this last go around, we're not going to twist, we're just going to compress the ribbon. Just push it down, okay, because we don't need, there we go, just a little bit shorter on this end. All right, and then we're going to cut this off. Now I'm going to cut it off a little bit longer than normal because I want to roll it like I did this end. So I'm going to just cut it off a little bit longer. Okay, that's much longer, but you'll see what all right, and I put one tail up there, one tail down. All right, and then the 2 loops. And this is basically the structure of my bow, in that I'm going to now just continue to make X's with the other ribbon. I'm going to start with the green. Okay. We're going to start at the dovetail, the end. All right. You fold it in half, and then you cut from the fold to the point on an angle, and that creates the dovetail of the ribbon. Now I'm going to take and twist it like I did the first time, so that the correct side is facing up here, and then the loop comes around, and the correct side of the ribbon now is on the top of the loop. All right. We're going to go about the same length, just a little bit shorter. And then we're going to compress this one because we're done with the 2 loops. Okay? And when I cut this one, I'm going to cut it about the same length as this one. Remember, this one's curled up. This one is going to be dovetailed. Same process. Fold it and cut to from the fold to the tip. All right? And this is going to start, what I'm trying to show you is the X. All right? Now we've created an X with our ribbon tails and loops. Now I know I had a pin here. No big deal. We'll find another pin later on. Oh, here it is. Okay, now the next color that we're going to use is the Dupioni, the Ivory Dupioni. All right. Now we started up here. So this layer, we're going to start down at the bottom. You just dovetail this one as well. And you just rotate where you start and on each layer of the bow, on each ribbon. Again, we're going to twist. You're going to make the same, about the same size loop as the green one. Maybe just a little bit smaller. Going to make an X. And then dovetail this end. Okay, and that's going to form the X for us. Okay. Alrighty. Good golly, don't know what I'm doing with my pins today. All right, the next color is going to be this soft pink. And we're going to go, with this one, we're going to go a little bit shorter. We started on this tail here. So we're going to start at the top. We're going to dovetail it now, put it in the pegs, twist so that the correct side is facing up, and then we're looping around. Okay, this one is, you can see it's a little bit shorter than the green one. Twist. A little bit shorter than the green one. And then just compress because we're done with the loops. Bring it down and then dovetail it. Now some people dovetail all at the end. I like to do it now so that I don't forget to do it, or forget, in my case, it'd probably be just one ribbon tail I forgot. I'd get them all except for one. So by doing it in the beginning of the bow process, and I don't have to worry about it. And even if I have to shorten these once it's in the wreath, it's okay. Now I'm still making an X with these loops and tails. All right, now let's go on to the cream and beige check. Do the same thing. We started up here on the pink, so now we're going to just start it from the bottom. I'm going to dovetail this end, put it in, twist. All right. Twist it. And this one should be just about the same size, maybe a little bit shorter than the pink. Then compress it because we're all done with our loops. And then we'll cut it and then dovetail. All right, now just take the time to get things in the right places. Make the X with the ribbon tails and bow and loops. All right. Now, the next one we're going to use, I'm actually going to just switch out my color pattern only because I love the pink on the top. So I'm going to use the bluish green first. Okay. This one we're going to dovetail, same process. I'm going to start from the top though. Still twist it, even though it's a shorter or a thinner ribbon, nothing changes, we're still twisting. Making that X. Dovetail. And just kind of make sure it all is going where you want it to go. Okay, onto our last ribbon. And the reason I chose this one is I like the pink and I like the pattern on it. While this is sparkly, I do like the pattern of this one. Okay, so this one, I'm going to add a little wrinkle to the mix. We're going to still dovetail this one. Start at the bottom like we should be. Okay. This one's going to be a little bit shorter than everyone because it's the last loop. Now, normally we wouldn't twist it, but we're going to twist this one just for this real quick because I'm going to put this little loop around that top peg. Okay, then I'm just going to compress it. What this is going to do, this little loop is going to hide where we're going to feed the zip tie through to tie all of the ribbons together. And this little loop will create a shield so you won't see the zip tie, the band of the zip tie, okay? And it's probably hard to imagine now, but let me just finish dovetailing and pull the zip tie through to show you what I mean. Put this ribbon away. Okay, so now I have rather long zip tie. You can see it's pretty long and it's black. All right, now I'm going to slide it basically along the bottom edge, and I'm going to make sure that I'm underneath that chenille stem or pipe cleaner because I want that pipe cleaner to become part of the bow. All right, so I'm going to pull this through the loop, all right, and then I'm tighten up the zip tie. Here, crinkle a little bit. Now with that in mind, you can kind of lift up the bow and use I never take the bow out before I have the zip tie pretty well cinched because you don't want your bow to, you don't want to lose your stack. You don't want it to slide. Okay, and the stack is just how all these ribbons have fit together. All right, I'm just trying to separate that. It's a little groove that is created by these two pegs, okay? And you want your zip tie to go right down that groove, into that groove, and then pull your zip tie together, pull it to the back of the ribbons, and then just tighten it. That's the beauty of zip ties. They can really cinch things for you. I'm being very careful not to have any of my ribbons slip. This top one is giving me a little bit of an issue, but I can still adjust everything. And then when I get there, just pull it as tightly as you can. Okay? The tighter you get it, the more your loops will sit up at attention. Okay? And you can see that we've pinned that pipe cleaner in there. Okay, so let's cut this zip tie tail off and let's get to fluffing the bow. All right, so let's just start on one side. I turn it sideways. Of course, this big 4-inch ribbon is the first ribbon. I'm going to hold it down and pull the tail down. Now this is where, when you're making your bow, you be the boss of these ribbons, okay? You're not going to ruin anything if you tug a little bit, but you need to get your ribbons in the right order. Okay, then the next one was the green. So we're going to take the tail and the loop and pull them in opposite directions. We're going to take the cream, which is the next one, tail and loop and pull in opposite directions. And then the pink polka dot, tail and loop in opposite directions. The cream, check. The green. And finally, your pink. Okay? And all you're trying to do is just get all the loops. And see, this is where imagine your hands were scissors, curling your ribbon downward like that, okay? All right, just work the wires of your ribbons. Give each one life. Each loop has to have some life in it, especially this big one. All right, now let's do the other side. We're gonna do the same thing. Okay, we're going to start with the big 4-inch at the bottom. I'd like to just put my hand through it and pull that tail up. All right, and now in this case the green loop is up over here and the green tail is down here, so we'll pull them in separate directions. The cream loop is down here with the tail up there. Now the pink polka dot loop is up here and the tail is going downward in this case. Okay, and then after that, pink is the cream check. Just pull the loop and tail different directions. The green sparkle. And finally the pink. Now the pink, because we added this extra bow and this extra loop in the middle, is going to have both of its tails down, pointing down, just the way that happens to be made. If you can see, perfect example of the shift. My loops are the wrong, so I just have to give it a little tug. Okay, and there you go. Now they're equal. But a lot of times that happens on that last ribbon because you're pulling the ribbon and you're manipulating everything, trying to get it out, and it's easily fixed. All right. Give each loop on this side some life. Okay, then we just kind of curl use our hand to curl that ribbon down. There we have our bow. Now let me fix this side real quick. We do want it to roll, but I know that I left way too much on it. So if I want to roll it to about this length, I'm going to cut off about 4 inches. Okay, now I'll just roll it. All right, so now, and there we have our bow. All right, see, that's the soft Dupiani. It just is. Just a teenager, does what he wants to do. Okay, so now let's add this bow to our wreath in the bow zone. And watch how this all ties together. Okay. So again, the bow zone is what I'm calling this the bow zone because it's the two ties that I did not put tails in. So I want this bow with the longer side of the tails pointing down. Okay, just twist it so I can see it. So just feed the pipe cleaners through the mesh. Again, always get it on a ring, tie it around a ring to give you the stability you need. Push it right through the mesh. And it'll help us because we do have a longer pipe cleaner because we tied two together. Won't be such a struggle. There we go. And pull down. Sometimes you just need to kind of push your mesh and the ties down so that they don't force the bow to rise up above everything. I just give it a really good tug, tie it in there, twist those pipe cleaners behind here. Okay, and I'm just going to wrap it around because I don't want to cut them just in case we change our mind or think of something else that we want to do to the wreath. Okay. There we go. So let's just spin these around just a little bit so that they don't cover up the sign. They are going to overlap the sign, there's no doubt about that, but we don't want it to cover it up completely, okay? And we still see the mommy and the baby bunny, so it's not anything that it is covering is not too detrimental. Okay, and as you can see, you can't even see that we don't have ribbon tails underneath this bow. There it is. Okay, now you can stop here, certainly if you'd like, or in my case, I'm going to just add a few things to this wreath in the way of maybe florals, or let me grab up the things that I'm going to add, but certainly you can tell that this kit makes a very, very pretty, dainty wreath, as a matter of fact, for Easter. So I'll be right back with a few of the extras that I'm going to add, and we'll go from there. While I was away, I did some research, and I found in my stash a couple of things that I think will make a real pretty addition to this wreath. Now, this wreath is very dainty, in my opinion. It looks very, very dainty to me. So I originally thought I'd put in these kind of stark flowers, and when I really looked at it closely, I decided that it doesn't fit. So instead, what I've done is I found some flowers in my stash. Now, some of these are from Trendy Tree, and the ones that are from Trendy Tree, I'll give you the numbers. The Trendy Tree, this is called the Gerber Spray, and it is number 29422CM. That's 29422CM. And these are the small Gerber daisies in cream. Now, a Trendy Tree does not have this ranunculus bush. However, Trendy Tree does carry ranunculuses. So if you go to their website and look up ranunculus, you'll find possibly something that would work in place of this. If not, if you have another small pink flower that you have in your stash, certainly feel free to use it. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm building basically a bundle. And you can see I've experimented with this one, and I've just weaved in the flowers together and tied them off with a zip tie. And then what I'll do is we'll go in and we'll add this bundle all in one to the wreath. But let me show you how I made this bundle with these flowers. I took this stem here, all right, just kind of gave each of these flowers a little tilt. And then I added my stems from my ranunculus bush and just kind of filled in the voids that are created by the stem of the 3 Gerbers, okay? You can see I'm just kind of staggering them a little bit, bringing them lower, more out to the side. Maybe if I set it on the ground or on the table, you would see what I'm doing, okay? And then we have one more stem that I think I'm going to put towards the bottom of the pack, all right? And so my 3 whites are interspersed around these pinks. Okay, the last thing I did is I took this egg spray and opened it up a bit and just weave this into the middle of the pack that I just made. See if I just spread them out a little bit, put them in the middle. Pull this one up. All right. Give it some dimension. In fact, this flower here can go on top of it so that the eggs are mingling in there. And then it's actually this last one here that I'm going to just bring down. Okay, so you can see that I have a bundle of flowers. And the white are interspersed with the pink and then the eggs. Now, just take a zip tie at the base of this bundle and zip tie them together. This will help because then you just have to put in one bundle as opposed to, well, there was 5 stems here. So by bunching them together and zip tying them, you're actually just having to put in one bundle as opposed to each individual one. Okay, now these flowers here kind of fell off, so I'm going to fill in my bow with those. And this is a 3rd stem that I'm going to hold off to the side and see if we need it for the bow. Okay, let's clear the decks. We've got our 2 bundles made. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just add my glue, turn on my glue gun as well. And the reason is, once I get these bundles put in to the wreath, sometimes it's easier to simply squirt glue into it as opposed to trying to dip it into my glue pot. Okay, I'm going to trim this stem off. We don't need that long of a stem. And we've got our 2 bunches together. What I'm planning to do is kind of straddle, put the bow in between, or put these actually around the bow. All right. So what I like to do here is I know that it's going to bend to the right a little bit. So let's just give it a little bit of a bend. Keep everything in line. So when it goes through the bow, see, it kind of comes out like that around the bow. All right, these are our extras. Let's bring our wreath back. All right. Okay, so I want to add this bundle underneath the bow. So let's lift the tails. Do you remember those 2 spots that I had with no ties in it? The tie is right here. Let me turn this around. Here's the tie, the first tie that does not have a ribbon tail in it. I'm going to use that to secure. I'm pushing all the stems up underneath the bow, and I'm using that twist tie to secure this whole bundle in underneath the bow. Okay, just gonna weave this zip tie into these stems and then give it a couple of good twists. And you'll see that when the bow sits back down, okay, separate the ribbon tails. And see, this is where, if we need to shorten these ribbon tails, we will. don't want all of our florals hidden. And we'll do that as soon as we get our next grouping in. And this one is going to bend up around the bow a little bit towards the top. Again, we're going to reach underneath the bow, just like we did below. And we're going to look for those twist ties that didn't have a, here they are, that did not have a set of ribbon tails in there. So we're going to put, do you see them there? We're going to tuck this underneath the bow. Stick those stems way underneath the bow, behind the back of the bow. Sometimes I make these packets and put them on before I put the bow on, which definitely is easier. But this whole wreath has been a kind of a wait and see situation because it just is so dainty. And I had to go and find things that I think would go well with this. Okay, now I'm twisting that tie in there, pushing it down so that my bow will lay flat again. And we'll adjust all of this as soon as I get this where I want it to be. Now, just going to spread it out a little bit so that those eggs show. There we go. And there is one more little tie that I'm going to use to secure some of the stems here to hold it in place. There we go, just twist it around. So we're basically using the ties that are holding the mesh in and the ribbon, kind of as a twofer again. Okay, now you just need to manipulate your flowers back to the position you want them in. Kind of give them a little adjustment so they spread out a bit. And they intermingle with the white ones and the eggs. See the starkness of the egg, kind of it kind of bothers me a little bit. It's cream, so it's not like a terrible color like black or purple. However, I am just trying to kind of camouflage them a little bit with the flowers. Okay, so you can see that now we just adjust our bow a little bit. Put the tails back down. Give the loops their life. Breathe some life into them. Alrighty. Now let's take care of what's down here. We just have way too many tails down there covering up the things that we worked so hard to add to it. Okay, so first things, I'm going to just fix up this tail a little bit, twist it so that it doesn't cover the sign. Okay, now let's take care of these. Let's roll this one up a little bit more, give it a bend, and now we can trim these down a bit because they are a tad long when we add the flowers. We're just going to dovetail them again, but just a little bit shorter. Just take them all up a little bit shorter. Bend them with your hand. We're just folding them in half, cutting from the fold to the open edge. Okay, and now you can see just with those that small adjustment in the length of the tails, we can see the flowers better. And let's just continue with these. We're going to keep them all in proportion. This is our last one. Oops, the dot is just... Alrighty. Mama is still showing. Okay, so now we have everything well proportioned. And I have these little bits of flowers that I think would look nice coming out of our bow. So I just kind of feed them. I'll just dip them in my glue pot. Stick them in. This adds a little bit of interest to the bow. Go down a few layers. Okay, makes the bow kind of blend in, not, they're all working together. Oops, get rid of the glue strings. We have 2 more left. Put them together. Strength in numbers, right? Just tuck that in here. Okay. It's not a lot, just a little. But it adds to the daintiness of the... Now I have one more egg pick that I'm thinking I might divide in half, although that makes it kind of short. Let's just put it in here. Tuck it in here towards the top of the bow. Okay, before we do that though, I need to take my glue gun and just squirt some glue over the ties that are holding this flower bundles in, okay? They're tucked back in here. I'm just squeezing some glue down over the twist ties that were tied over the stems. Okay, and that just is fortifying that tie. So good at the top. Okay, and then the top we have two ties. We have one right here, just squirting the glue over it. Okay. And there was a second one right here that I'm just going to add a touch of glue to. And then I feel that those are really very securely tied in as well as glued in. And our last thing is this little egg pick. Let's cut it down just a little bit. Take off about 4 inches. All right, so that it doesn't come out too far. Okay, just dip it in the glue pot. Lift up the bow and get this to that tie. I like to glue things into the ties, the pine ties that hold everything, because the glue really sticks to that. Okay, give it a chance. I'm going to wiggle it around a bit just so I can grab as much of those pines as it does. And there, I think that really is pretty complete wreath. You don't have to add the extras, but if you do, I suggest you start at Trendy Tree and peruse their stock, because they have some incredible florals and things to add to your wreath. I want to thank you very much. I apologize for the trouble we had in the beginning. I hope everything makes sense, and I hope that I have inspired you in some way by putting this kit together. I appreciate you spending your time today. Have a great day.